Yo, today we're going to be reviewing the Rogue S-4 Indy Stand. It's relatively cheap, super mobile, but is it safe? We're gonna find out. I usually like to start off my videos with packaging and delivery, but like with most things in my gym, I bought this used. I can, however, mention that for my HR2 conversion kit, there was no damage on any other product that got sent to me. And so with this being the same company, Rogue, I can imagine that it's about on par with that. Now on to assembly. All the action happens below the knee in this area. There's only 8 nuts and bolts per stand, and all you need are 2 adjustable wrenches. You actually need 15/16 inch wrenches, but I use adjustable wrenches for literally everything in my gym. The instructions are super easy, and it would take you less than 20 minutes to do both stands. From here, we're gonna talk about specifications. Specs. Starting with dimensions, we're looking at 72 inches tall, 6 feet. Just like me. Then we go to the base. It is 22 by 26 inches. The base is constructed of 7 gauge steel, while the posts are constructed of 11 gauge, which is the same as all their other 3x3 racks, though this one is a 2x3 rack, their Infinity series. The 7 gauge and 11 gauge contribute heavily to its 65 pounds per stand, meaning that both stands together are 130 pounds. And because of that 11 gauge construction, this has a max cap of 1,000 pounds. Ain't no way you're doing that. Now we're moving on to what I like to call the how is portion of the video. Starting with how is mobility. These are super easy to move around, especially if you have something like a band peg to make it easier to pick up. With it being 65 pounds, it isn't the easiest thing to move, but it is definitely not the hardest. See my leg press video. How is storage? This is actually great to use as storage for your Iron Masters. All right. In actuality, these are super easy to stow away. Because they're 65 pounds, they're mobile, and then because their dimensions don't actually take up that much space, you can always just push them aside and still have plenty of room in your garage for your car, if that's what you like to do. And if the 22 by 26 inch footprint is still too much, taking apart these 4 bolts will make it so that this is just flat and you can lean it up against the wall. How is the coating? This is powder coated steel and it's just as good as any other Rogue rack out there. How is stability? With it by itself, it is super stable. Because of the 7 gauge construction of the base, it is very bottom heavy, making it want to go back to straight up. As for stability in use, you would have to force yourself to tip these over because these want to go back to straight up. Even when you're re-racking your squat weight, you will feel when you should stop. You'll tap onto the stands and then you'll just place the weight in. One thing to note is that the higher you go up on this, the less stable it is for the weight whenever you're re-racking it. So if you're, for some reason, some Goliath just chilling up out here and you're re-racking your squat weight, you have the J cups up here, it will be a little easier to tip over, but still pretty hard to do so. I would say that these aren't exactly for an ego lifter that isn't in control of their weight at all, because you are not able to put on safety arms on these. In fact, you can have no attachments for these except for the J cups that come with it. As far as width for the rack goes, I prefer it at the 43 inches that all other Rogue racks are at. But you could have that closer or wider depending on your preference. However, going wider would be limited on wherever your sleeves start for your bar. Having them closer is also limited because of the base. The base is H-shaped and the legs that jut out do get in the way of your lifting area. So if you do have them closer, make sure that those will not be in your way whenever you're doing your work. Like with the rest of Rogue's Infinity series and their Monster Light series, this does have 2-inch hole spacing at the top, and then in the benching area, you do have west side spacing. And as always, they go back to 2-inch spacing towards the bottom. This is me benching 275. I just want to show that when you're in control of the weight, this won't even tip back. However, if you're not in control, it most definitely will. One thing I would like to mention is that I did mess up here. I did put collars on and there is no safeties. All I would have is my wife as a spotter and I can't trust that. But in actuality, because this can't use safety arms, this is unsafe. So make sure you're lifting with somebody or without these so that you don't injure yourself and potentially avoid a tragedy. I did just do the leg press video, so I'm not gonna squat this, but I do wanna show that at that squat level, when you're re-racking it, if you're not in control of the weight, it does tip forward, much easier than when you're benching. But if you're in control of the weight, this is just as good as a squat rack. 225 incline bench, this is kind of in between the squat and my bench press. No collars on the bar because I learned from my mistakes. Hello, my name is Porky, and I am a veteran of the United States of America. I'm asking you to please support your fellow man by subscribing to Porky's Powerhouse. I am your fellow man. I'm a tiny channel. I'm a tiny man. Please support me by subscribing. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this and if you'd want to see a comparison video between this and all its competition. I would be more than happy to oblige. Before I get into price, I do want to mention that for the price of a brand new S4, you could get an SML1, which is more modifiable, more stable, and easier to buy attachments for. So unless you're super strapped for space, I would go with an SML1. I review it here. But if you want to know the price of the S4, we're looking at $405 base price, and then after shipping, it's $519. Looking at the SML1, it's $400 base price, and then $481 after shipping. For me, specifically, for both of those scenarios. I should also mention the S4, which is essentially these posts on an SML1 base. But even though it starts out at $395, for me, the shipping ends up being $491. So at that point, I would definitely suggest the SML1 over that. As someone who loves to powerlift, this would be great for any of the 3 lifts. Deadlift, you could put it back on here and then change your weights. For squats, it works pretty decently. For bench, same. So if you're strapped for space and need something sturdy, this is the move. As always, subscribe for some in-depth till death reviews. Stay hungry.